All right, guys. So before we jump in, I would like to just give you a bit of insight into what we're going to do on the call tonight, right? As I said before, the fact that there's not many people on here is a bonus for you guys. And if you're not happy to and it's too uncomfortable to go back and forth when it gets time for some questions, or once I kind of asked you guys to hear a bit of your input, no stress at all. But I think you'll get a lot of value out of it, particularly because we've got such a small group on the call to make it a little more interactive. So to give you some insight into what we're going to cover. I'm going to speak for probably the next 20 to 30 minutes. I don't want to speak too long. Don't want to just sit here and talking to myself. But um, what I want to cover tonight, guys, is the very clear steps that are going to allow you guys to attract any outcome that you want into your life. Now, I want to encourage every single person that watches this call, because obviously the replay will go out to everyone who kind of registered for tonight. I want to encourage you guys to, or before we even begin, to let go of all logical thinking, to let go of what makes sense, to let go of what you think you're capable of, and start to shift those conscious thoughts, or start to shift that desire towards what you want. Right? It's a very, very simple question, but most people find it really, really hard to answer that. What is it that I want? Because our brain instantly goes towards, well, what do I think I'm capable of? What seems reasonable? What seems logical? What has everyone else around me done? What have I done in the last few years? And how will that kind of compare to the next 12 months? Fuck all that. We want to let go of all of that, right? We want to really start to think almost like a child, is like how I like to kind of refer to it. Like we're thinking like a child. A child doesn't have the part of their brain yet that starts going, well, how am I going to do that? Does that make sense? When's it going to happen? Am I someone who can do it? They just think about the shit that they want to experience, visualize it, feel into it, and have a great time. And we can do that as well, right? And I think the main part of tonight's call, and I'm sure this is why a lot of people registered, is understanding how to get out of a position where we feel like we're stuck, right? We see it time and time again. And I think for everyone at some point in time, we have all experienced it. And more often than not, you experience it quite a lot in certain aspects of your life. And there might be other areas of your life where you're just absolutely dominating and crushing, which is amazing, right? But we want to start to look at these, or gain an understanding as to why certain areas of our life feel like we're on a hamster wheel, is the best way to explain it. Now, this could include body composition, this can be finances, this can be relationships, your career, absolutely anything. And we're going to get stuck into why so many people end up in that cycle of feeling like they are on a hamster wheel. No matter what they try, it's like we end up in the same position over and over and over again, right? And there's a number of different reasons as to why that's the case. But what you're going to walk away with after the call tonight is a very clear understanding of what you need to do, right? The things that are within your control of what you need to do to change your circumstance and to change your outcome. And again, I want you to let go of all that logical thinking, because a lot can change in a really short period of time. And most of the time, the only reason why it doesn't is because we are addicted to comfort. We're addicted to what is familiar and what feels safe. And that is just shit that we've already experienced. And as crazy as it sounds, a lot of the areas where people want to change in their life are the people would rather stay in that position subconsciously, which sounds really weird, right? It's like, oh, well, I'm in a bad relationship and this is not good for me. I don't get treated properly and I'm unhappy, but you know what? I'm going to stay in it because it's just comfortable, safe, and familiar. Whereas when I think about getting out of the relationship, there's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of unknown, and there's a lot of unfamiliar feelings that are uncomfortable, right? But the most important thing I want you guys to remember is that all change requires a level of discomfort and an unfamiliar feeling and uncertainty, right? Because without those ingredients, there is no change. And I always liken this to fitness in the gym, right? If we go into the gym, every single workout we do is the same session with the same weight, same reps, consistently for a long period of time. Your body is not going to change because it doesn't have to. There's not one reason as to why it should change, and it won't. And it's very much the same for our lives as well. And so I guess I know I'm rounding a little bit here before we've even started, but I mentioned in the email that I want you guys to have a real clear intention of what it is that you do want to change. Right now, with that is obviously where you want to go. And we're going to get to that in a second and why that's so important. Far more important than the thing that you're trying to get away from, or the thing that you're trying to change in your life, right? And you'll understand why very, very soon. So we want to walk away with very clear steps as to what's required of us I want you guys to leave this call feeling super high frequency and just excited about what's ahead for you, right? That the feeling of anticipation is one of the greatest feelings and one of the most impactful and powerful emotions we can experience, right? I said to a client the other day, I'm sure everyone here to some extent has experienced this when you know you're going away on a holiday, right? And you go into work at the start of the week and you know on Saturday that you're going to be going away. Doesn't matter what really happens throughout the week. You just enjoy every aspect of it because you know there's not a question of if you're going to go away. Your flights are booked, your accommodations booked, and you know at the end of the week you're going away and you're excited about it. And so you've got this feeling of anticipation for what's ahead. Now, when you think about it, very rarely do people experience that feeling on a regular basis. It's usually only for something that's, irregular. Like I said, might be a trip away, could be a dinner you're going out to. And for a lot of people, it's just the fucking weekend, right? It's like anticipating it being Saturday so I can finish my work and actually go and enjoy my life, which is something that we want to change, right? We want to be waking up each day with this sense of purpose and excitement for our own life. Like, which it sounds a little bit cheesy and cliche, but we want to build a life that we don't need a break from. And when we can get to that point, that's not to say that there's not going to be hard work. It's not to say that there's not going to be days and times where things feel shit. But I know for sure that it is a lot easier to wake up inspired and to wake up feeling aligned and to wake up with purpose and passion when you're living a life that you actually created, the one that you wanted, and not just one that you think that you have to have. So as we dive in now, I want you guys to get really, really clear with what it is that you want to change. And we are going to get to the point in a second of really shifting our attention to what it is that we want more so than what we want to change. But I'm just going to Lisa, I'm going to come back to you. What, if you're happy to jump in, obviously, at the moment, what is an area for you that you want to change? We're going to get to the intention and the desire, but what's an area, if there is one for you, that you feel like for a long period of time, no matter what you do, how you do it, who you do it with, when you do it, it just feels like you end up back at this starting point again. Is there something for you that kind of resonates in that regard?
I guess like talking about like owning my own business, I guess feeling like no, you should be in the office doing your 9 to 5.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's
Yep. Yep.
that's what I've done.
Mm-hmm. That's a great example. Awesome. Thanks for sharing. I know Matt left a comment before. So I'll come around to you, Will. How about yourself, mate? What's something that you're wanting to change?
Um, well, at the moment, I'm sort of looking to get into real estate. So,
Nice.
yeah, just new career looking, yeah, to G up a bit for that. Looking forward to the anticipation. Um,
Good.
yeah, not much I want to change at the moment,
Good
but
man.
just build.
Awesome. So first off, what I want to explain, guys, is my understanding as to why things don't change. And I'm going to give you a couple of examples of how that plays out and how it looks. Some of you might have heard me speak about this on the podcast recently, but um, not too long ago, a couple of weeks ago, I interviewed Aussie rapper 360 on the podcast. And we had, if you haven't heard it, it was a fucking awesome conversation. Probably one of my favorite episodes to date. And we started speaking about his time or his experience of addiction. Right, he'd been to rehab a number of times, and in 2020 was the last time he went to rehab. And I asked him like, what was the difference in his mindset when he went in 2020 in comparison to all the other times, and why did it work? Like, why did he think it worked in 2020? And the answer was pretty typical, right? It was like, well, I wanted to go. It was my decision. Like, I wanted to change. Whereas before, I was kind of just doing it to please everyone else and to get everyone off my back, right? But we started to peel back the layers a little further. And how this might look, I'm going to use two examples of body composition and money, right? I think two that most people can relate to. Body composition, this undesirable outcome that people find themselves in, year after year. We've all probably been there at some point. If not, then I can guarantee you can think of at least one person who kind of fits this mold where it's like new diet, new training program, you know, fucking motivation coming up and down. And there's always like this new starting point of like, this is it. I need to lose this weight and I want to change my physique. But it's kind of the same story just over and over and over again. And I want to add as well, it's not from a lack of trying. I think this is the thing that really actually kind of works against us to an extent, is that it's like the harder we try, the more we try and force it, and the more we start to get consumed by it, the less likely it is that it's going to change, which sounds a bit shit, right? Because it's like, well, I badly want to change this and I'm working my ass off to change this thing. And it's just like, no matter what I do, I'm just in the same position. And I think one thing we need to keep in mind, guys, like as we chat through this call tonight, is that our self-image is the most important thing. And it's often the driving factor of what does and doesn't happen in our life. And it has to be aligned with our intention and our desire. And if it's not, then it's always going to gravitate towards what that self-image is, right? And so with the body composition example, the main basis of how we are going to change our outcome in any way, shape, or form, regardless of what goal or desire we're talking about, we have to understand that our results always, not sometimes, not fucking every second day, or not just on Thursdays, always skew in the direction of whatever emotion is stronger. And I'm going to kind of, reiterate that or kind of break that down a bit more. But we either have a really strong positive pull or we have a really strong negative pull. And whichever one is stronger is typically where our results are going to, the direction our results are going to move in. And so if we come back to this body composition example, one of the key fundamental things that I have learned in personal development and mindset work is that what we focus on, what we put our energy and attention towards, typically expands. We usually attract more of it, right? One of the most simple explanations of the law of attraction is that our external reality, so whatever we're experiencing in our life, is always a reflection of our internal state. Always, right? And that's why I said it's so important to really look at what our self-image is, because I can be doing all the right things and talking about all the right things and be the most motivated person on the planet. But if my internal state is super low frequency, if it's doubting myself, if it's not aligned with the intention, it doesn't matter what the intention is, because nothing's going to change. And if we use the fat loss example, I'd get on a consult call with a potential client and ask them what their goal is. And let's say it's weight loss, right? Or fat loss, 20 kilos they want to lose. The whole call from their part is them talking about what they don't like, right? I don't like being overweight. I don't like the fact that my clothes don't fit. I don't like the look of myself in the mirror. All of the things that are coming out of this person's mouth are about the thing that they don't like. Very rarely does the conversation then lead to all of this excitement about what's going to happen when they achieve their goal. They're not sitting there going, I can't fucking wait to be super excited to go to the gym. Can't wait to leave the gym feeling like, I've just improved. I can't wait to understand nutrition. I can't wait to just be in phenomenal shape and have all this energy and be productive. That's what they want. But most of the attention is not on that, right? And so if I ask that person, and I want you guys to think about this too, with whatever it is you feel like you want to change, how much of your time and energy do you spend thinking or acting on the thing that you don't like, the thing you're trying to get away from? And I use this reference or this analogy in the podcast the other week. I think it was the podcast. Imagine you being somewhere in your car, right? And you're like, you know what? This place is shit. I don't want to be here anymore. And you get in your car, and as you drive away from wherever you are, you're just staring out the back windscreen the whole time. You don't even look through the front window. You're just driving away, looking out the back window the whole time. You're either going to crash or you're going to end up somewhere else that you don't want to be. You're most definitely not going to end up where you said you wanted to go, because you're so fixated on the thing that you don't like that you're not even looking in the direction of where you want to go. And so if I come back to, I'm going to talk about the money example in a second. If I come back to this podcast with 360, he told me, okay, I made the choice that I wanted to change, right? Great. The reason why it didn't work the first few times when he went to rehab, not only was it because he, he wasn't loving being in rehab, obviously. He went into rehab the first few times with a very clear desire and intention to get sober and to change his life, right? He wanted that. But more importantly, the strength of the negative emotion towards what he was going to have to sacrifice in order for that to happen was far stronger. So when he's sitting there thinking about, okay, I want to go to rehab, I want to get healthy, I want to get clean, but that means I'm going to have to stop drinking. Obviously, not going to be able to use drugs. In his case, obviously, a lot of his music career, he'd been in that old state. So he's probably questioning, will I be able to perform as well? Will I be the same? So there's all of this negative energy and emotion around the thing that he actually needs to let go of. And so as much as he wants to get over here, this thing over here is keeping him exactly where he is. Now, if we use the weight loss example, same story. That person is going to the gym, not to walk out of the gym feeling great. They're going to lose fat. That person is following a diet because they want to lose fat, not because they want to be healthy and to feel great and to just really be really happy about how they look. It's because they don't want to be overweight anymore. And so every decision is being made from a low frequency, negative energy. Now, if we come back to law of attraction, like attracts like. So you're not going to attract a high frequency positive outcome from a low frequency negative energy or negative emotion, right? Now, with the weight loss thing, if I speak to that person about being overweight, or even if they think about it, right, when they're going to the gym, when they're looking at what they're going to do with their nutrition for the day, when they see themselves in the mirror, all of these things create a physical response. It brings up a negative emotion, right? And it brings up that much of a negative emotion that when they start talking about being in shape, it rarely even brings up an emotion. That's what they want, but there's no feeling connected or attached to that desire or intention. Now, two of the most important ingredients of any form of law of attraction or manifesting is having a very clear intention and an emotion that is attached to that intention. Dr. Joe Dispenza refers to it as what fires together, wires together. Now, if you guys, I'm going to come back and ask, I'll come back to Lisa again in a second. Lisa, if I ask you, if you think of something throughout your life that you didn't like that you were trying to change, when you think of that example, what emotion comes up?
Fear.
Yep, fear. Exactly. Now, quite obviously, fear, scarcity, shame, disappointment, frustration, sadness, resentment, jealousy, all of these things, they are very low frequency negative emotions, right? And so here's me over here going, okay, I'm on my journey to lose 20 kilos. And every fucking thing that I do is happening from a place of fear, right? Me going to the gym is the origin of that decision is fear. Me following a nutrition plan, the origin of that decision is fear. Me looking at myself in the mirror brings up fear. And so there's not one part of that that would suggest that you're going to attract this high frequency outcome, right? But more importantly, the most important part of this example is for that person in that current moment, the negative emotion is far stronger than the positive emotion of where they're going. And so it's always going to pull back to this direction here, right? I'm going to use another example just quickly around money. Same story, right? If we are in, let's say we're in debt, right? We're in a debt, whether it's $50 or $50,000, usually feels pretty similar, right? Debt doesn't feel great. And so we've got this person over here that goes, you know what? I need to change my outcome. I need to change my circumstances around money. I want to become financially free. I want time freedom. I want to, an X amount of money that they're trying to attract, because it's very important to have a meaning or a purpose behind what it is that you want. Saying that I just want $1 million sounds great, but it doesn't bring up any form of emotion because I don't need it, right? Whereas if I sat down and said, you know what, I want to do this with my business over the next 2 years, that would require me, if I was to do that, I would probably need $1 million to do that. Now, all of a sudden, there's a meaning behind the $1 million and it makes sense. I'm not just saying I want it, right? You got to keep in mind, money is always, it's an exchange of value. That's realistically what it is. And it's a utility. Okay. And we won't go into a shitload around the money energetic side of things tonight, but that's exactly what it is. Money is just energy. And energy is meant to consistently flow. There's not meant to be blocks and resistance in energy, right? There's a book that I might put in the follow-up email after this, The 7 Spiritual Laws of Success, which anyone who's worked with me has read or listened to before. And he talks about the law of giving. And he used an example of the cells in our body. If one cell doesn't give to the next cell, then the whole thing starts to turn to shit. Not only does the whole thing turn to shit, but the cell that didn't give to the next one also goes to shit. And so in order for it to stay healthy and to be aligned and to function at its most efficient in its most efficient way, it has to give to the next one. It's this constant flow, right? And when we start to look at money as an exchange value, it makes a lot of sense. It's like the more value I can provide to someone or to a group of people, then the more I will be rewarded. That's all it is. And when we can start to think of money that way, it starts to feel a lot lighter, right? I know I said I wasn't going to talk too much about money, but here we are. One of the key things that I have learned from a number of my mentors over the years is starting to look at your attachment style to people and understanding that's most likely your attachment style to money. And so when you're starting to think or speak about money, you almost want to start thinking to yourself, okay, well, if I was thinking or speaking about this same thing, but money wasn't actually money, it was my partner, or it might be my future partner, how would that feel for them, right? And so if I'm sitting over here and I'm stressed out of my brain about paying a bill because I'm so worried about when the next bit of money is going to come back in, imagine your partner leaving the house and you sitting there texting him 24/7 going, where are you? When are you coming back? How come you're not here? And you're sitting at home losing your shit thinking that they're never going to come back. They're going to be going, what is wrong with you? Right? And that's not going to feel good for them. And it's the same thing. So we want to have this detachment and this state of non-resistance around what it is that we're trying to attract. Now, I got a little bit off track there, but with the debt, the person who decides they want to get out of debt, same shit as the body composition. All of their decisions are just trying to get away from what they don't want, right? Even though obviously the desire is to have more money, every decision they're making and the energy of all of the stuff they're doing isn't necessarily to get to this point. It's just to get away from this. And so if I say to that person, how much money do you want to attract? Let's just say they say $1 million, right? And I say, why do you want to attract $1 million? Well, I'm in debt and I want to get out of debt. The emotion that comes up when they speak about the debt is far stronger than the emotion of excitement towards having $1 million, right? Because they have what fires together, wires together. They have this emotional connection to this thing they don't like. Now, this is honestly the craziest shit, whether it's a job, a relationship, body composition, anything. Far too often, we would rather be right than to have what we actually want, right? And what I mean by that is, let's use money as an example. This person has most likely created or adopted a lot of negative beliefs around money. And so when they're sitting here saying, well, this is not going to work, I hate being in debt and I'm going to start doing this thing, but there's no way this is going to work because I always end up in debt. Well, subconsciously, they're going to end up in debt again because the ego would rather be right than to just have what you fucking want. It happens all the time. As a coach, it happens all the time with body composition and nutrition, right? People want to get into this physical condition, but before we've even started, they've already made their mind up that it's not going to work. Nothing works for them. It's going to be too hard. And even if everything is working, all of a sudden that person gets uncomfortable because it's different. And that discomfort then leads to us making decisions to go back to what is familiar and what's comfortable and safe. And all of a sudden you're back where you started, didn't get the outcome that you wanted, all because you and your brain, right? A lot of the time it's not a conscious thing we're doing, would prefer to just feel normalcy, to feel familiar and to feel comfortable and safe than to just have what we want. And so now that I've kind of explained that little framework, we now are left with what we need to do. Or what actually changes this and shifts that pendulum from the negative towards the positive. And the answer is we need to fall in love with the future self, fall in love with the future outcome to the point where when we think about it, when we speak about it, when we write it down, it brings up a stronger positive emotion than the negative emotion that's attached to what we don't like. And so we now start to look at, well, how does that look, right? And I think for those that have done or have tried meditation and things like breath work and journaling and even stuff like this, like coaching and working with a mentor or understanding these principles even more, we now have a very clear path. We almost have a compass, right? When we're going into a meditation now, it's not just to sit there with our eyes closed and hopefully just stop thinking for a little bit. It's, can I start to build this strength, this positive strength of emotion around this future outcome, right? Now, we've all experienced at one point in time having a bad dream, right? You wake up from the bad dream and physically your body has responded as if it's actually happened, whatever happened in your dream. And so what we can take from that is that the brain and the body don't know the difference between a thought and reality. And so when we practice it enough to the point where when we visualize the outcome we want, all of a sudden it brings up this positive emotion because we're starting to almost imagine it already being done, right? We want to always assume our manifestation being done, right? So it's not a matter of if, it's like the holiday example. It's not a matter of if I'm going on holidays on the weekend. My shit's booked, like I'm going. So it doesn't matter what happens between now and then. I still know that I'm going away. All right. And so now we start to go, okay, how can I build the strength of the positive emotion of what I want? Now, I want to come around. Will, I want you to jump in for a second and I want you to tell me what you think would be the answer to that in terms of like how you're actually going to do that.
In terms of meditation, probably sit still for a bit and just my why for getting into real estate is like my future family. And I just want to make like a good financial situation with my future family. So just to meditate and just keep picturing that in my head while I'm meditating towards it.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Definitely part of the equation for sure. 100% part of the equation. I think, remember what we're doing here, guys, is we're not saying, okay, well, I'm going to pretend that I'm not overweight. I'm going to pretend that I'm not in debt. I'm going to pretend that I fucking love my job when I hate my job. I'm not going to pretend that, this relationship is actually amazing and it's all in my head. We're not saying that, right? But what we need to do is we need to remove the resistance around the thing that we don't like or the thing that we want to change. Now, the easiest way to remove resistance, I learned this from Peter Crone. If you haven't heard the episode I did with Peter on the podcast, I'd highly recommend it. It's genuinely a life-changing conversation. He often says that when we have a problem that we are trying to get rid of, the answer is not to solve the problem, it's to dissolve the problem. And the way that I've interpreted that is that we just need to remove the meaning from this negative thing that we don't like, right? When we've got a meaning towards it, we make it part of our identity and we start to strengthen this negative emotion. Whereas the answer to this is it's acceptance and surrender. Okay. I remember even I saw when I was seeing a psychologist a couple of years back, psychiatrist, either or, one of them. And we were talking about negative emotions, right? And she told me something very, very simple, but extremely effective. When you are experiencing a negative emotion, the fastest way to move through it is just to literally acknowledge it and label it and feel it. Allow yourself to feel it, but don't create a meaning to it, right? So when I say don't create a meaning to it, I mean, we don't want to start creating beliefs around why we're in that position. You're not overweight because you got bad genetics or you got big bones or any of this bullshit, right? You're just overweight because for a consistent period of time, you've been consuming too much food, right? That's the reality of it. It's very logical when you think of it like that. You're not unlucky and that's why you're always in debt. You just obviously have a bit of a resistance and a limiting belief around money, or maybe the way that you utilize money is not aligned with the way that you want to experience money, right? So we're just accepting it. We're just kind of saying, okay, this just is, right? This thing that I don't like, it's not because of anything, it just is. And that's it. We're just trying to almost detach and let go of the emotion that is behind this negative thing that we don't like. Now we have to shift towards building that strength. And so how do we do it? By far, some of the most effective tools to do that, as Will mentioned, is things like meditation, right? Breath work, spending time journaling, spending time visualizing, all of these things where when you look at it properly, whether it's training, meditation, ice baths, cold showers, all this type of shit, the reason why they all feel so good is because we stop thinking, right? We're letting go of all the stuff that's usually in the way. And that's why it feels so good, right? Again, Peter Crone said in the podcast, like psychological time is typically what makes people feel negative emotions. Psychologically living in the past or psychologically living in a future that hasn't happened yet, may not happen and probably won't happen, is what creates a lot of our negative emotions. And so when we're able to be completely present, right, that starts to shift. Next time you feel a negative emotion, whether it's stress, anxiety, frustration, ask yourself, am I psychologically living in the now or am I psychologically in the past or the future? And if I wasn't psychologically in the past or the future, would there be any reason for me to feel this negative emotion right now? And majority of the time, the answer is no, right? So I'm not just going to sit here and go, okay, all you need to do is meditate. Okay, that's a pretty that would be a relatively shit takeaway from this masterclass. It is definitely one of the most effective tools. But what's really going to allow you to shift is starting to live like you already have the outcome. Now, I've talked about this in a number of different ways on different masterclasses and different podcasts and whatnot, but we want to take this a step further, right? So if we come back to Will's example, okay, and I'm going to use another example in a second as well to really highlight the whole negative thing and how we want to shift away from focusing on getting away from it and focus on going where we want to be. But for Will to sit here and go, okay, I'll use a different example. Sorry, Will. Similar example, but just with a client that I'm working with at the moment. She is in real estate, right? And she has these intentions and desires to reach a certain level of not only financial, reward, but also just as a as her in her profession. Sorry, get my words jumbled up here. And right from the very beginning of when she started as a real estate agent, I asked her a very simple question. What would be the perfect outcome for you in 5 to 10 years' time? Like, where do you want to get to? She told me what it was, what that outcome and desire was. I said, all right, well, the way that you feel, the way that you structure your days, your current habits, the way you speak to yourself, the way you respond to positives and negatives, basically everything about your life at the moment, does that align with you having that outcome? And the answer was no, right? So what we need to start looking at is, okay, if the future me had this outcome right now, right, what would I need to change? What would be different about my life? And I don't mean, when we're talking about a money example, right, I don't mean, okay, well, I'm going to start going and buying fucking Ferraris and Lamborghinis today, even though I don't have the money yet. I mean the embodiment of who you actually are, right? It's not about the what, it's about the who. Who are you being in every moment, not just when it's convenient for you or when your motivation is high, because motivation will fucking come and go all the time. You cannot rely on motivation. You have to look at, how can I embody the version of me that has it? Now, as a real estate agent, maybe that is starting to look at, okay, well, let me go and have a look at really successful real estate agents. What do they prioritize? How do their days look? How do they structure their days? How many calls are they making at the beginning of the day? Like, all of these different bits and pieces that you can start doing right fucking now. And this is the thing. Like, we need to start living as if the outcome has already happened. So now it makes sense that the outcome would happen. Okay. Like attracts like. And again, we are looking at our internal state. That's the most important thing. And there's a statement that I like to talk about with my clients, that the universe is always catching up to who we are being. Now, the reality of that is that most people are just being the person who is reacting to what their life looks like right now. And so the universe has already caught up. So we need to shift away from reacting to what's in front of us and start, it's almost like a state of delusion, right? It's start responding and showing up as the version of ourselves that we know we would have to be for that outcome to make sense already. And so I'll give you a prime example, like right now, and I've had examples like this previously. 118 people signed up to this call tonight, and there is 4 of us, including myself, on it, right? Now, if I'm sitting here and I know what my intentions and desires are for my impact as a coach or as a business owner, they're quite high, and I think they should be. Now, if I show up to this call and I'm reacting to what's in front of me, I'm reacting to how reality looks right now, then I would get on the call and go, oh, fuck, we've only got 4 of us on here. We'll just kind of get through this one, and I'll do another one in a few weeks' time, and I'll be all a bit disappointed and sad and all this shit. Fuck that. That does not match me being where I said I want to be. So I need to show up to this call and show up to my business and show up to every aspect of my life as the version of myself that I know I would have to be to have that outcome that I'm saying that I want. Does that make sense, guys? Just give me a thumbs up if it does. Yeah, good. So this is what separates people who are going to change and people who are not going to change. Because it's fucking hard at the start, right? And you're going to be sitting here going, oh, well, I've done this, this, and this, and nothing's changed yet. Well, guess what? You've just fallen back into the old pattern again. And so this requires a level of awareness and consciousness around who we need to be each day. Now, this makes more sense as to why intention setting is so important in the morning. This makes sense why meditation is so powerful, because if I'm starting my day 15, 20 minutes, I'm sitting in a meditation, I've gone into that with the intention of feeling the emotions that are attached to having the outcome that I want. Now, by the time I've finished that meditation, if I have brought up those emotions in that meditation, then guess what? I'm already the person who's got the outcome. And now that I'm feeling those emotions, like attracts like. And so now I'm going to attract more things that are in alignment with that. But it works both ways, right? This is how we understand why when we have something that happens really small at the start of the day and we react to it, now all of a sudden we're in this low frequency and all of a sudden the whole day's gone to shit because of one little thing that happened in the morning. So I want you guys to ask yourself that question now, and you don't have to do it while we're on the call, but afterwards, I want you to really write down in your journal or whatever you're writing on, who are you being at the moment? And does that match the outcome that you're saying that you want? Because it's not just going to happen by accident. It's not just going to fall in your lap, right? We have to be able to be bigger than our environment, bigger than our current circumstances, so that when reality catches up, it's catching up to who we're being, which is not a reaction to where we are right now. Now, again, this is why a majority of people's lives look the same for a long period of time, even if they don't like it. Because what are they doing? They're just showing up each day and reacting to what everything looks like, reacting to their current circumstance over and over and over again. And a quote that hopefully sticks with all of you is that what we react to, we are creating. Right? So what you react to, you are creating. So now if I'm going, let's just use this real estate example again. If I'm showing up, it could be my first week on the job, never sold a house in my whole entire life, but I have a very, very clear idea of the embodiment of a really successful real estate agent. All right. So I'm showing up to all of these things that I'm doing, to every call, to every communication, to every win, to every loss, to every aspect of that job, embodying the person who would be doing $100 million of real estate a year. Right. Now, the reaction to a win when you are on your first week of the job compared to someone who's been in it for 10 years, most likely is going to be different. But the goal is for it to not be different, right? We have to normalize what doesn't feel normal yet. And this is where things like the law of exposure are really, really powerful. Exposing yourself to things that aren't normal yet until they become normal. Right? This is why so fucking often we hear people talking about you're a product of your environment, right? Go and spend time with people who are doing the things that you want to do. That's why I just last year, and this is not me trying to, sit here talking about numbers with money and all the rest of it, but last year I invested $50,000 into coaching, like someone coaching me. Now, do I feel like I could have gotten by without it? Fucking oath. But I want to be spending time and having conversations and getting comfortable and familiar with things that aren't comfortable and familiar for me right now, to the point where they feel normal, right? Because when we look at things like frequency and who we're being, we will always revert to what's normal. You'll always revert to what's normal. And so we're consistently telling the universe, is this normal or is this not normal for me? And so I use this example with someone the other day. If a client reached out to me today and said, hey, can I work with you for the next 6 months? I'll pay you $50,000 today. $50,000 is a lot of money. And obviously I'd be extremely grateful and extremely happy and excited about it. But I've done enough work on these type of things now to the point where I would hope it wouldn't really make a huge difference to my day. Now, let me rephrase that. That's not to say that $50,000 is not a great amount of money, but I can't be sitting here acting like that's the fucking most insane thing that's ever happened, because all I'm saying to the universe is that's not normal. And so this is what I'm talking about. Who are you being? If I was doing $1 million a year in my coaching business and someone signed up for $50,000, that would be a normal day, right? And so this is where we need to get to, where we're showing up and we're not reacting. Okay, this is, again, we're starting to embody who we would need to be for things to change. Now, as soon as we can strengthen that positive emotion of where we're going to the point where that is the thing that's consuming us more than the negative. As I said before, we're not pretending that this thing isn't here. We're just accepting it and surrendering to it. We're just kind of saying, hey, I can see you there, but I'm moving on to something else. So you can kind of just hang around until you've had enough, but I'm out of here. I'm going in this direction. And I'm not going to pretend it's not there. I'm not going to create resistance around it. It just is. That's it. Now I'm actively working day after day to strengthen the positive emotion, the excitement, the anticipation for where I'm going, to the point where that consumes me, even if I am in actual debt. And this is the beauty of this, guys, is that this doesn't just work if you're already at a certain level. This doesn't just work once all the negative stuff is gone. That's when it's most important to start working on this shit, right? You have to be able to do that and just go, okay, I don't like this circumstance at the moment, but the more energy I put to it, the more I am strengthening this negative emotion, right? So if we use the money example again, if I've made that desire and that intention to go, okay, this is the amount of money that I want to attract and this is where I want to get to, right? And we're starting to work towards it. And we're just continually building this excitement and this anticipation for when we get there. And that's now consuming our thoughts. Because if I'm trying to get out of debt and all day I'm thinking about it, and it's bringing up this physical feeling of like, oh, this doesn't feel good, then every time I'm doing something like that, I'm strengthening the negative emotion. And this is why we don't want to react. Because if I go back to the body composition example and I'm like, okay, I am getting to the point where this is exactly how I want to be. It's how I want to feel. It's how I want to live. It's how I want to look, right? And then it's been a week and I walk into the bathroom, go to have a shower and see myself in the mirror. And I'm like, oh, fucking hell. I'm still overweight. I don't look the way that I want to look yet. That energy and attention I've just put to that has now strengthened the negative emotion. And so you can start to see how it becomes almost this battle, right? And that's why it's so important for the acceptance and the surrender, because we're not saying that it's not there, guys. We're just saying, I get it. You're here. I'm going to put you to the side. And no matter how long you stay there for, I'm not fucking looking at you. All right. I'm building this positive pull in this direction over here. Now, last week, I'm going to come back to you guys in a second because I know I've been talking a lot, but last week I put out a podcast around this analogy of a puzzle piece, which I just want to repeat on this call because I think it's, if I do say so myself, one of the best analogies I've ever come up with that makes a lot of sense and very, very relatable. When you go and buy a puzzle, right? Let's say all of you that are watching this, I know, for those that are watching the replay and aren't on the call live, when you go and buy a puzzle, you're buying the puzzle because of the picture on the front, right? Let's say it's 1,000-piece puzzle. You get home, and in this case, the picture on the front is your intention and your desire. And that's how we're going to relate this puzzle story to where you're trying to go. You get home and you open up the box and you're like, fuck, I think a piece fell out. I reckon there's a piece missing out of this 1,000-piece puzzle. You don't actually know if it's missing, but you're convinced that it is. So now you go and spend the following 12 months every day frantically searching around your house to try and find this missing puzzle piece. You're like, fucking, where is it? I need this piece so I can start this puzzle over and over and over again, right? Now, again, based off what we've just said, what am I doing? I'm strengthening this negative emotion of the thing that I supposedly think I'm missing, or that the thing that's not right. And 12 months later, you realize that piece was never missing. It was in the box the whole time. And you've done fuck all for 12 months because you've been looking for this missing piece. You've been searching for this thing that you don't have in order for you to create the picture that you want. Now, if we go about this the right way, right? We get home, open up the puzzle, think there's a piece missing, but we're not sure. We go, okay, there's 999 other pieces that need to go together first, right? So I'm sure at some point in time, I'll find this piece. And I think it's important to understand that when you put the puzzle on the table, there's not one part of us that goes, fuck, I know exactly where every piece goes. You don't know how to put the puzzle together yet. That's the whole point of the puzzle. And it's the same with our intentions and our desires. We don't have to know how. We have to know what we want, and we have to start moving in the direction of creating that. But we don't have to know how to do it. We're not expected to know how. I heard Bob Proctor, there's an audio book that I've listened to 4 or 5 times now. I like to pick a book, listen to it a number of times before I move on to something else so I can really kind of integrate or absorb the information in there. And he said, no one knows how to do anything until they've done it. Right? Sounds very simple, but it's so true. No one truly knows how to do anything until they have done it. So when you're looking at this puzzle and there's 1,000 pieces or maybe 999, you have no idea how to put it together. Again, that's the whole point. And to think about putting 1,000 pieces together is pretty overwhelming, right? So instead we go, okay, well, I'm going to put together 10 pieces a day for the next 100 days. That's how I'm going to complete this puzzle. So day one, even with the missing piece, right? You go, okay, start the puzzle, 10 pieces today. Now you might be 2 weeks in and you put together 10 pieces every single day and you're looking at it going, this still looks like shit. This does not look like the box. But again, there's no expectation for it to look amazing yet, right? You're still on the journey of building this puzzle. And it's inevitable that you're going to put pieces in the wrong spot. Okay, but when you put a piece in the wrong spot, now you just know that it doesn't go there. And that's it. There is no meaning behind it. You're not a bad person. You're not, lacking any skill. You're not, whatever. You don't lack self-worth in this instance. You just put the piece in the wrong spot. Very normal thing to do. Now you know it doesn't go there. Now we get to day 100, right? And you're putting together these last 10 pieces and you're going to have one of two things. Either one, you're going to realize the piece was never missing in the first place, or two, in that 100 days, because you've detached from looking for it and you've removed all the controlling, forcing energy towards it, it'll just pop up somewhere. It'll be in the most obvious spot or in a place that you just hadn't looked yet. And now you've got your missing piece and you put the puzzle together and you've created this beautiful picture. And the most amazing part about that puzzle is that you think to yourself, I did this. I am the one who put it together, right? And it didn't matter how long it took me to do it, right? The 1,000 pieces that were in the box, we had those 1,000 pieces from day one. And that's what I want you guys to take from this. For you to build the picture or the desire or the intention that you want, you have every single piece you need right now, but you just don't know where they go yet. And that's normal and it's expected. What's not part of this story is getting pieces from someone else's puzzle or finding pieces that didn't come in the box and going, I'm going to put this here because that'll make the picture go together faster. So what I'm trying to say is that we possess everything that we need in order to create the life that we want right now. Whether we build that puzzle in 1 year, 5 years, or 20 years, the reality is every piece we needed to build it across that 20 years we had on day one. Okay, and I think that's something I want you guys to really gravitate towards and take away from this call tonight as well, is that you have all the pieces. The only reason someone else's picture looks better than yours is because they've been doing it longer or they've just figured out how to put them in the right order. And so when we go into comparison, particularly when we're trying to change an outcome we don't like, we're comparing our puzzle to someone else's. And we're thinking, shit, they must have pieces in theirs that didn't come in my box because their picture looks better. No, they've just been doing it longer, or they've made more mistakes and they found where the right pieces go and it all starts to join together. Now, the last piece, ironically, last piece on this puzzle story is there will be pieces that kind of you feel stuck on for a long period of time, right? It might be day 50 and you're like, okay, I've been trying to find where this piece goes for the last 20 days and I don't know. But the reality is when you inevitably figure out where it goes, your self-belief and your confidence will skyrocket to the point where you're like, I'm going to fucking finish this puzzle, no worries. There was a period of time here where I thought maybe I won't be able to do it, but I can do it. You have to lean into that belief that you can do it, right? And it's not meant to be easy. If a puzzle was easy, why would you buy it? You just buy a fucking picture, right? So I think just coming back to this as well, I think the puzzle piece analogy is a big component of that is just stop fucking looking for shit outside of yourself. Stop looking for this secret or this answer that's going to just make the puzzle join together. Because the only thing that matters is, are you actively putting those pieces together daily? As I said before, 10 pieces a day is easy. Every single person that watches this call can put together the 10 pieces a day. But when you compound those 10 pieces over 100 days, instead of trying to do it all at once and then getting frustrated and then coming back a month or two later and doing it again and doing the same shit on repeat, you just put together the small amount day after day and you got really, really good at putting together those 10 pieces until before you know it, it just looks like this beautiful picture, the exact thing that you wanted to create. And so I'm going to come around with a couple of questions in a second, but I kind of wanted to just summarize like the main component of this call that I want you to take away. Stop putting your time and energy to the thing that you don't like. because what you're reacting to, you are creating. And not only you're creating it, but you're strengthening the emotion of the thing that you don't like. And we know now, like, again, this is not a question of whether it's true or not. This is 100% true. Our results are always going to skew towards whatever emotion is stronger. The positive emotion of where we're going, the future self, or the negative emotion of our current self and what we don't like, where we continually find ourselves in that same shit show over and over and over again. And so if we come back to the body composition example from day one, this person is one, embodying the healthy, fit, lean version of themselves. They're not going to exercise to lose fat. They're not following a diet to lose fat. They're going to train to improve their physique and to improve their performance. They're eating towards their goal. Two things feel very different, right? That feels extremely different. Going to the gym to lose fat or going to the gym because I want to improve and get better. Very different and a lot lighter. And so the more often we can consciously put our attention to getting excited about the future outcome, the stronger that emotion gets. And so it's not rocket science. We look at it day by day and go, at the end of the day, I'm going to write in my journal, did I strengthen the positive or the negative emotion today? And if you can start stacking together more days where you are strengthening the positive emotion than days where you're strengthening the negative, then things will start to shift. And it's not a question of if they will shift, they will. And coming back to how I started the call, that intention and that desire should be exactly what you want. Not just something that seems reasonable or within reach. Like, why? Why do that to ourselves, right? And a big part of the reason why people do that is because of our beliefs. That's a whole completely different separate call. I might do that one in a couple of weeks' time because that's some game-changing shit too. But our beliefs don't need to be true, and majority of them aren't. But if you believe it to be true, your experience of it always will be true. And so we've got to ask ourselves, is this even my belief? And is this belief aligned with the outcome I want? And I know I've said this on a couple of calls recently and probably in the podcast too, but I'll just kind of tie this little belief thing up with the belief loop, because this, to me, when I understood the belief loop, it made me just go, okay, this is not that hard. It's not rocket science. Whatever belief we put our attention towards is going to lead to our subconscious thoughts, right? If I genuinely believe I'm not worthy of success and abundance and happiness, and I'm not good enough and I'm never going to be able to do it, then guess what? All of the thoughts I have are going to be aligned with that belief, regardless of whether the belief's true or not. My thoughts are going to be aligned with it. Those thoughts are going to lead to your actions. Those actions are going to give you a result, and the result is going to reaffirm the belief, and the cycle starts again. So understanding that, the only thing we need to change is what belief am I putting my attention to, even if it's not true yet. That's it. That's all we need to do is put our attention towards a belief that's aligned with what we actually want. Now, of course, that's going to feel weird at the start. It's like me asking you guys to go and brush your teeth with the opposite hand this week. Every time you go to brush your teeth, you're going to grab it with the dominant hand. And it's going to be an active thing. You're going to have to decide, okay, well, I've got to change and go to the less dominant hand instead. And that's not normal yet. But in time, the more often you do that, the more normal it will feel, until it is normal, until it's just a habit. And so our beliefs, that's some of the biggest shit. Like I'll use myself as an example in business, like, and with money. That was one thing that kind of really kept me where I was for a long time. It was a mixture of having this belief around money that just wasn't true, and then leading to this result, which I didn't like, and then me spending a lot of my time and energy trying to get away from this result that I didn't like. But because I hadn't changed what belief I was putting my attention to, it was just going to be the same shit over and over again. And when we get the result, of course, it's so much easier to now think, well, shit, this belief must be true because I've just seen evidence of it. But it's as simple as saying, well, if you had to put your attention to a different belief, the evidence would have looked different. And so the only way that we find that out is to have that trust that this works. And I'm not sitting here telling you guys all this stuff because I've just seen a few fucking videos on YouTube and listened to a few audiobooks, right? The laws of the universe they're not a question. We're all using them. Most people just don't use them to their advantage because they don't have the self-awareness and the conscious awareness of what am I putting my attention and energy towards, right? We are like a power plant. Energy just is. So we can generate more and more energy around the things that make us feel the way we want, to the point where we are like this fucking magnet for things that are the same frequency as that emotion. And so it would make sense for you to start trying to feel that emotion more often, because every time you feel it, it's like a radio receiver. Like, you're sending out this signal, this frequency signal that is attracting back a direct reflection of whatever that emotion or whatever that feeling is. And so now it makes even more sense as to why people get stuck, because now they're stuck, they're feeling these negative emotions, this low frequency, and that consumes them. And so because they don't change their state, they keep attracting the same thing. And now all of a sudden we build a story around it. I'm unlucky. This just happens to me. These people have it different to me. It just doesn't work for me, and this, that, the other. And it's just not true. It's just not true. That's as simple as it gets. So I hope you really feel like, you are in the driver's seat, because you are. You're in the driver's seat for your own life and what you want to get out of it and what you want to experience. Can you get really fucking good at embodying the version of yourself that has the outcome that you want, to the point where, as I said, it'll feel wrong at the start because there's nothing to suggest that it's true. If I'm in $20,000 worth of debt, now all of a sudden I'm waking up tomorrow living like I am already a millionaire. Well, when I look at my bank account, it's like, not sure about that. This doesn't seem like it's actually changed. I don't know why I'm sitting here pretending to feel like I'm already a millionaire or already wealthy or whatever. But the only thing you're going to get if you stay in the frequency of where you're at is exactly what you've already got. Right? So you have to have that level of courage and be able to feel the fear and move through it anyway. Because, if I know I'm rambling a little bit now, but to really simplify it, guys, like, all choices are hard. Every single choice is hard. You just have to decide which hard you want. You want the easy part now and the hard part for a long period of time afterwards? Or do you want the hard part now and then a long period of time, which is really positive and enjoyable and full of abundance and growth and joy and all the rest of it? Sounds pretty simple when you say it out loud. Right? It's a pretty easy choice. So before I come around to you guys, I just want to kind of have a little chat to round out the call. Your job, your actions that you needed to put into place straight away is to really look at what parts of my life at the moment don't align with me having this outcome that I want. All of them, right? We can't just plug in and plug out when it's convenient. Like, okay, well, I'm going to show up for my business today because sales are good and all the rest of it. But then tomorrow, when sales aren't as good, or I didn't sleep as well, I'll do it again the next day because it doesn't feel good today. It's like, well, you can't be selective with when you want to show up as the future you. It has to be something that becomes, just who you are. Because this shit does not happen by accident. It does not happen by accident. And I want every single person that watches this to experience what I'm explaining, because as soon as you start experiencing these changes and seeing this positive impact on your own life, and as I said, you start to realize, well, shit, I'm the one who put this puzzle together. The opportunities are endless, and that now allows you, because you've got this evidence, to continue thinking illogically. Like, we get to make up the rules. Like, it doesn't have to be the same as everyone else. It doesn't have to be the way that you've done it in the past. It most likely won't be. It gets to be fun. I think this is the thing, that we want to keep in mind, is that it's meant to be fun. Life is meant to be fun. Life is meant to be enjoyable. And if it's not, it's a sure sign. It's a key indicator that something is out of alignment in your life. And it's not to say you're never going to feel shitty emotions. It's not to say that bad things aren't going to happen, right? But a lot of it is just perception. It's like, okay, well, yes, this thing happened that I don't like, and I wish it didn't happen, but it did. So how am I going to respond? What do I put my attention actively towards next? Because that is what's going to lead to whatever I experience next. And so the more consciously aware of these decisions and more consciously aware of your own energy you can become, the quicker your life will change, right? The universe doesn't discriminate. And so, as I said, we've all got that 1,000 pieces, the same as everyone else's. And it doesn't matter whether you decide to make the change now or whether you continue to stay in the familiar, the familiar reality that you've already been experiencing, whether it's now, next week, next year, or in 10 years' time. You have to realize that all the pieces you need, you already have. So it's a choice. Am I going to just delay the thing that I want and just continue to stay in this cycle of this thing that I'm saying I don't like? Or am I going to change my life? Am I going to be actively make this decision to move in the direction of where I want to be? Start looking at the fucking front windscreen instead of the back and start driving in the direction of where I want to go with a detachment of when I get to the destination. Right? Because if you already had the outcome, you would never be looking for it. If you already had the outcome, you would never feel in lack, or you wouldn't be disappointed about whether or not it's actually happened yet. The last thing I'll say around this is that trust and belief cannot be conditional. If there's conditions to trust and belief, it's neither of the two. It's not trust or belief, it's just, I'll believe it when it's convenient. But if you trust that everything is working for you, then no matter what shows up, it's meant to be there. And it's the universe putting it in front of you to go, okay, you asked for this, and the universe always delivers. You asked for this, and I am putting this in front of you because that's what you need to go to where you said you want to be. And so you can either see this little speed bump as a challenge and a problem, or you can look at it as an opportunity. It's your ticket for growth. This is your entry to where you want to go. And if you cannot show the universe that you're able to navigate through it in a state of non-resistance and in a way where you can move through it, then that's okay. It's just you telling the universe, I'm not ready yet. Right. And then you need to get ready, because the universe will give you another opportunity. And if we see it as an opportunity, your life will change. If you see it as a problem, your life will stay the fucking same, and you'll consistently end up in the same cycle over and over again. And the longer you stay in it, the harder it is to get out of it. So hopefully that's made a good amount of sense to you guys. I'm just going to